Rama Kunda Bihari Jaya Govinda Balaba Girivardhari Yasodhananda Prajatanarajana Yamuna Tira Manatari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jai Sri Goni Jai Ki Jai Govinda. There's my cloth now.
Hare Krishna. So we are very glad
Keep it short. I will say something to that. But forget it. I know it's too much praise. Don't. My name is Prithu Prabhu. When I was here the first time in this temple, you were all very old. You were old people. And I was very young. And I was born, you were not even here. And so it was the same. I don't remember the Garuda there and Krishna. Temple room was the same, much more beautiful, of course. Now I remember this kind of roofing, because I used to sleep on top. And many mosquitoes there. Up were the mosquitoes, and downstairs were the rats. The building was not in a very good shape, but we were ecstatic. We were very ecstatic. And we were young devotees. I came from Germany. I remember, I think Gagamuni Prabhu, he was a treasurer. Gagamani, he was very famous for managing money. And he gave me a good lesson on that. When we arrived, 4 of us, young boys, 25 years old or something, he said, do you have any money on you? He said, why? He said, this is a very dangerous place. Many dacoits here in the area. This money should be locked away. I said, all right. So I gave him $1,000. Next day when he wanted to pick up the money, he said, what money? I said, I gave him $1,000. He said, I don't remember that. I said, come on, you remember that, Don't give me that. He said, no, not at all. So then I called my friend, we were 2. He was there as well, and he gave the money. I said, you're my witness. He gave you the money. Did we give him money? Yes, so we have already 2 witnesses against 1. Give me the money. I said, what money? I said, oh, that money, that was a donation. He said, you gave a donation to Radha Govinda? Radha, you can't take that back. That's very bad karma. You go to hell. So we called our GBC, Hansa Duta, is an American. And so they were among Americans. He said, nope. He said, Gagamuni, I'll give you 5 minutes to give this money, otherwise I hire somebody in the market for $25, he takes you away. Right? You can do that. Very easily, you can find some person who shoots you. So he said, all right, give the money. So Prabhupada was living in this room in the back. That extension was not there. And I remember very well, because a year later, we were translating Bhagavad Gita. I told this already to some of you boys. We were translating Bhagavad Gita from English into German. And this was the first non-English book of Srila Prabhupada that came out, and Prabhupada was really excited for it. Particularly Bhagavad Gita in Germany, that has so many Sanskrit scholars like Max Müller, etc. It's a significant book. And so it was very thin, only this thin, because it had Bible paper, very thin, super thin paper. It's very thin, but you cannot look through the pages. It's very first class. And Prabhupada opened his book up, and he bent it like this, I don't want to do it to this book, but he bent it way back, He said, very good binding. He said, everything first class. He said, when I was a medical man, he said, when I was a medical man, I took only my medicines from Germany. So we were very pleased, he was very pleased. It was a very sweet moment. He was so happy and so grateful to us. He expressed his appreciation for the work. It was hard work, 1,000 pages almost. He was very happy. And so that was my experience with Srila Prabhupada in that little room there, same room. Everything is now very gorgeous, but we didn't have shower facility. We would bathe in this pukur that we have there. It was very, at that time it was not, there was no stones around, it was very how do you say, you have to make sure you don't slip into this water, it was very, it was not exactly, but that was our life. We were young devotees, and for us everything was wonderful. Everything was wonderful. Everything about Prabhupada, everything about the Hare Krishna movement, everything was wonderful. We didn't care. We just didn't care because we were so happy. I remember I got a book in the evening, one evening, some friend of mine gave me a book. It was Ishupanishad. And he knew that I was into that. His mother bought it in a town 200 miles away. She was shopping. Ladies like to shop, we all know that. And so she was shopping, and some devotee approached her in these strange clothes and gave her this book. She said, I don't need that. I can't even, what is all this, And he said, you buy it for your son. And that's the way to do it. As soon as you drop the word son, the mother goes there. Okay, I buy it. She bought it. That was a magic word, son. She bought it. She gave it. She couldn't do anything with it. She gave it to my friend. He couldn't do anything with it, but he knew that I was into this. And so he gave me the book. I knew it was the moment of my life when I was holding the book. I could say more to that, but it's a very mystical moment actually. For I had some experience there all of a sudden that I was in a shock. I knew this was exactly the moment I've been waiting for years. I didn't even know that he had a book. I said, you have something for me. He said, what is it? I heard myself like talking in a dream, I heard myself, you have? He said, no. I said, you have something in your bag. Look in your bag. He said, oh, I forgot, I have this book. I said, that's the solution. I had no idea. I didn't open the cover. I said, that is the solution to all my inquiry. And I read the book overnight. Next morning, 4 o'clock, I decided that's it. I saw the last pages. On the last page, there was a picture of his Jai Advaita Swami, as I found out later on another devotees. They were clapping their hands. And then it says, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it says, we follow the following principles. It says, no drugs, even tea, coffee. I had taken plenty of drugs, but I got away from it. I knew I would never have joined an organization where there were drugs, even cigarettes. By that time, no meat, fish and eggs, made perfect sense. I was vegetarian. I would have never joined a Christian community where there's meat eating. Never, impossible. Because I understood this is violence towards other creatures. You can love God and eat his creatures, eat his kids. I mean, how you have children? You have children? Huh? He has children? Huh? Yeah, imagine I would come to you and your children. Can you imagine I would come to you, I said, I like you, but I want to eat your child. How would you feel? How does that work? Right? It's impossible. So we are eating Krishna's children. Vidra Pradapita Savayonishu, of all creatures. And so with this mentality of killing animals, you cannot even respect others. If you have no respect for that life, you won't have respect for that life. And ultimately you won't have respect. The mother will not even have respect for the child in the womb. And murder his own child. I mean, it has to do with respect, So I knew that, no mean of sex, no gambling, that was clear, and then it says no sex, and I said, that's it. That's it. Most people, they turn away. As soon as they hear no sex, that's it. They close the book and say, it's not for me. But I saw that. I said, that is a very serious society. That's hardcore. That's exactly what I want to join. Normally it's the other way around, right? When people hear sex, no sex, they go. I remember there was one boy, I told the story many times, it's too good not to tell. There was a boy who was arrested in Mangal Arctic. I was a temple president in 1973 or something in Heidelberg. And he joined, a young boy, he just joined, and in the morning the police burst in the temple, 3 of them, they said, there he is! And they grabbed him and handcuffed him in the back and dragged him out like an animal. I said, hold on. Who are you? He said, well, who are you? I said, I'm the temple president here. You can't just take a guy away. He said, what's your name? I said, Peter Brinkman. I said, Mr. Brinkman, We cannot tell you why we take him, what's the actual cause of his act. But we know he has to go to see the judge. The judge is looking for him. They cannot say anything about the case, you understand, before he's judged. They cannot say, well, he did that and that. You can't. Policemen cannot say that. So the judge, I was called the next day by his, the boy called. He was in jail. He called me, he said, my lawyer said that you should come and talk to the judge because you're my authority. Okay. So the judge said about 200 people in court, all waiting to be prosecuted. Petty session court, small things. You know, somebody stole a pack of cigarettes, somebody stole a bike, this sort of thing. You know. So the judge said, Mr. Brinkman, are you here? I said, yes, Your Honor. I said, you want to talk to me? I said, yes, speak. He said, this great, speak. So I said, I understand, I said, Your Honor, jail is there to rectify people, is that true? He said, yes. I said, he's already rectified. He said, how is that? He said, we are non-violent people, we don't kill even an ant, no meat, no fish, no eggs, no drugs. Here I know he smuggled some some bang, size of a thumb. I know it's punishable, but we don't smoke even tea, drink tea, smoke cigarettes, beedies, nothing. No gambling. And then I said, and no sex. That's it. Like this, you know. No sex, you know. I said, no. Only in marriage. And then only for producing children. He said, that is worse than hell. Take him with you, he's sufficiently punished. Take him with you, he's sufficiently punished. That's a material world. We are just the opposite. In Bhagavatam, there's this verse, what is night for all living beings, the time of awakening for the sage. We're just the opposite, and so it attracts a certain group of people to the Krishna conscious movement, and they are there, they're in society, they're sleeping, and our business is just to find them. They're already there. You can't really make them. They're already there. And they get a book, and immediately, that's it. They join. How was it with you? You read the book, right? At first it's a book, isn't it? Yes, first is a book for all of us. We read and then we go, wow, this is wonderful. So this way we joined the Hare Krishna movement. We didn't know much about Krishna consciousness. And even later, I remember we are Western people. What do we know about Indian culture? I remember we had somebody brought some tulsi seeds from India, and we sold them, and the tulsi tree that grew and grew and grew to the ceiling. And our GBC said, this is your devotion, it's your bhakti that is growing so fast. And we were yani kani chapapani brahma yadikani dancing around this tree. So finally some Indian people said, why are you worshipping bamboo tree? I said, this is not bamboo, this is tulsi. Prabhu, we are from India. This is a bamboo. We tried our best. Right? After half an hour, half a year of worship, we stopped the worship abruptly and waited for some real tulsi tree. So, I mean, I could entertain you in so many ways about things that went on in the beginning. It's like Srila Prabhupada went to the West and practically speaking like Lord Ram, who was preaching to monkeys and bears to conquer Lanka. It was very similar. You know, people don't know what's going on. And so it was very adventurous, but we were very strong in our conviction and in our activity, very strong Harinam. You know, Sankirtan also, 2 Harinam parties of the size of a temple like this, one in the morning, one for 4 hours, one in the afternoon for 4 hours, and then book distribution 7 days a week from 8 o'clock in the morning all the way up to 6, and then reading 2 hours books and sleep 6 hours, get up, chant your rounds, eat prasadam and go out, and another day. 6 days a week. And so by the end of the week, everybody did so 300, 400 Bhagavad Gitas or Bhagavatams or whatever it was. But it's hard work. You cannot work like this. You have to work very hard. Then Krishna helps you. And that's a fact. If you actually work very hard, then Krishna will help you. That's my experience. I give you an example one time. And I told these stories many times, but they're good. They're instructive and they're helpful in your spiritual life. One time I was distributing, and it was amazing. I distributed so many books in a very short time. People came up to me and said, "What is this? Can I have one?" "I have one also." And I looked on the watch. 22 minutes has passed, and 18 books I counted, I sold, which is humanly impossible, actually. It's humanly impossible. But then I thought, well, Prithu, you're the king of book distribution. And in the next 3 hours, I couldn't sell a single book. I became so puffed up, and Krishna smashed my ego. So sometimes Krishna shows itself. The flip goes open, and you see a little bit, and it closes up again. It's like this in our life when we come to Krishna consciousness. Young devotees particularly, they're speculating. In their mind goes like this: shall I join, shall I not join, shall I stay in the temple, shall I not stay in the temple? This is the nature, particularly when people are young. It was here actually, there was a lecture, Prabhupada gave a lecture, and one young devotee, one young Bengali boy, he said to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes I'm thinking, and Prabhupada said, don't do that. Because he knew it was mental speculation. It was not based on Shastra. Shastra Virimutsi Jabatati Kamakarata, Nasasigu, etc. It was not based on Shastra, it's thinking. We have to think through Shastra. That's a fact. There's a verse by Chanakya Pandit that the king sees through his spies. He was a spy. Even Rama had spies, Lord Ram. And you say, like the Indian Secret Service, they know a lot. They know everything. They know a lot about what is going on. And they inspect you very well. I remember I was there when Vajpayee, the Prime Minister, opened the temple in Delhi. I was investigated by the Secret Service. It was, everything had to go down. it was amazing. So spies are very important for a king. In this way he can expand his knowledge. Spies see through the nose, the cow sees through the king sees through the spies, the cow sees through the nose. As soon as you reach the cow, she smells. Tries to understand you, and she is able to extract one good herb out of a big heap of grass, because it knows. Very intelligent cow, actually. Much more intelligent than horses, Much more intelligent than monkeys. I live in Vrindavan a lot of my time, and when my veranda, you have this jali, and then you close it like this. Every cow would have, after some time, understood how to open that door, not monkeys. They see it all the time there, and they don't have the intelligence to copy that. You see again and again a cow in India, with her tongue, she opens a tap to drink water. Again, so many examples on the internet. They're actually very intelligent. And so now the king sees through the nose, spies, king sees through the spies, the cow through the nose, the human beings through the mind and through the senses. That's it. And the sage, he sees through scripture, Shastra Chakshu. And that's the important thing. We have to see through scriptures. Otherwise, we can't come to a proper conclusion. Our essential capacity is not able to ascertain what is truth. Not able. We don't have access to truth, actually. It's just like I give the example many times. We have a little key card, So if you are a worker, you can go to the shop floor, to the factory. You cannot go into higher management. You don't have access. Next higher level is accountancy, engineering, you can go there. Next card is higher, you can go to the to the board of directors room. Ultimate card is that you can go to the penthouse, where the supreme controller, the Ishvara of the factory is living. So in the same way, our access is very limited. As human beings, as cows, cow cannot understand our class here, you can understand. And most people, even in India, cannot understand. A buffalo cannot understand. So if people are drinking too much buffalo milk and are in buffalo consciousness, they cannot understand subtle things, super subtle things. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. It's a secret. Pavitamidam Uttamam, it's most pure. Pradyaksharam, it gives direct perception by self-realization. And therefore it's the king of religion. So our accessibility doesn't allow us in generally to come to transcendent knowledge. And so therefore people cannot explain, for example, in generally, at least in the West, the simple question, why do the innocent suffer? They can't. I mean, we can understand why the innocent suffer because we understand by knowledge that nobody's innocent, not even a child. Right? We can understand that. And every rickshawala in India knows that. Every bangi knows that I suffer because in my previous life this and that and that. But even the top religionists in the Western world don't have the answer to that. They openly admit, like the Pope of Rome, openly admitted to one girl who told the Pope in a public video show that all her friends are dead in the tsunami in Japan. He said, why are they dead? Where is God in all this? And he said, I have to ask myself this very question, and we don't have an answer because of lack of knowledge. If lack of knowledge, you have to have knowledge to understand. You know that as a Bhagavad Gita, never was a time that I did not exist as a conditioned soul from one body to another, etc. You have to have knowledge. Without knowledge you cannot understand. You need knowledge that the soul is eternal. There is no defined understanding of soul in any one of the Abrahamic religion. Abrahamic religions are three, namely Muslim religion, Christian religion and Jewish religion. They don't have a clear understanding what is soul, that they are soul. They think that they are the body, 100%. That's why they carry the body in great possession into the grave. My mother wrapped the feet of my brother who was dead in a blanket, in the best blanket she had. I said, why you do this? She said, I don't want him to freeze. I said, where? When he's in the grave. You see, there's a bodily concept of life that don't understand a simple thing. Why in the presence of a good God, who should be impartial to everybody, somebody is everything, somebody is nothing. Somebody suffers, somebody enjoys. Somebody is stupid, somebody is intelligent, somebody is beautiful, somebody is ugly, somebody is skinny, somebody is fat. They don't understand why. There's a reason for it. Religion has to be reasonable. That's the point. Religion has to be reasonable, otherwise it's sentiment. Religion has to be reasonable. So we have actually a very good way to preach to even non-believers or to people outside our Hare Krishna movement. You can convert actually hundreds and hundreds of Christians, for example. I've done that over my whole life. If you understand their limitations and if you can give them knowledge to understand what is actually going on. There's no knowledge. If you tell me there's only one life, that means you have no knowledge. As in the teaching of the Christian church, I give you an example, since I come from a Christian background. In the 530 AD, there was a huge convention of hundreds of Christian bishops. And they decided by vote, majority vote, there's only one life. So the truth is not subjected to voting, to a democratic process of voting. So they counted, okay, so many say there is no one life, there are some that say there is. And so they decided for the church and for all times, and every Christian believes in it, there's only one life. And anybody who believes that there's a pre-existence of the soul he goes to hell. That means Krishna goes to hell, Vyasadeva goes to hell, Shukadeva Goswami goes to hell. I mean, think about that. It's just bizarre, The Buddhists have a concept of, they don't have a concept of soul, still. If you ask the Buddhist what travels from one body to another, he will tell you the mind. The mind. And that's true. Manasavira. This body, the mind, mental body goes from one body to another. Yam yama, bhismaram, bhavam, chedati, antakalevaram, tam tamivati, kautya, sadara, etc. Right? So the mind travels, but they don't know that the mind is riding on something, like a rider on a horse. That horse is the soul. You see, only in Vedanta philosophy you have a defined concept of soul. And that's where you can catch people. You can ask them questions. You explain to me. You're a Christian boy? Okay. You explain to me why the innocent suffer. What about your family? Somebody died in your family? Yes. Who died? My brother. Younger brother. Why does God allow that? Why is he suffering? Give me an answer. Answer my question. Why do the innocent suffer in the presence of an impartial God? Samoham sava bhuteshu, Krishna says. I'm equal to everyone. Right or wrong? I'm equal to... So how come somebody is everything, somebody is nothing? Why? What's the answer? I don't know. Who is God? How does God look? I don't know. It means, I give you an example. You have never seen pizza in your life, right? As an example. You don't know what pizza is, you don't know how pizza smells, how pizza tastes, nothing. So I said, do you know pizza? He said, no. Have you ever seen pizza? No. Do you know how it smells? No. This is pizza. He said, no. Yeah? So who's God? Can you explain to me who's God? Who's God? I don't know. This is God. And then, no, that's not God. See the illogic of it, I remember I challenged one Christian on the street. He said, you don't know how to look God, how God looks. He said, that's true, but you know. I said, yes. So I opened the Bhagavad Gita and there was a picture of the horse incarnation of Krishna. That's Krishna. He ran. For the rest of his life he will think that we are worshipping a horse, which is also true. Because I agree that Krishna can take any form of life. So preaching can be great fun if we have knowledge, if we know how to preach to people. You have to understand when you preach to a person, who is this person? You have to understand his philosophy. Otherwise you waste your time. You may talk for hours to somebody who's just a buffalo. You have to first find out what is his philosophy. And Prabhupada would always do that. I was translating in Germany when Prabhupada was talking to professors. First question, every time, in every single case I know, is he asked, what is your philosophy? What is your philosophy? And then this man explains, and then Prabhupada would say, well, not a good idea. And then Prabhupada would explain, beautiful philosophy. One time Prabhupada was asked by one Indian man in the temple, Swamiji, do you know the Satya Sai Baba? And Prabhupada had never heard of him. Who's that? I mean, everybody in India has heard about the Prabhupada. I never heard of him. Who's that? And said, well, he's a famous guru and spiritual leader. So Prabhupada said, what is his philosophy? He said, well, he says he's God. Prabhupada said, oh, do you have a picture of God? I want to see the picture of God. He said, yes. And so the man showed him this picture. And Prabhupada said, that's not God, that's just an ugly old man. Prabhupada was expert. He was expert in undermining somebody's credibility, I remember he went one time into Kolkata. I was told, I tell the stories pretty much always the same because they're so interesting. He came into Kolkata with this maroon ambassador, right? Shama Sundar Prabhu was driving. And they drove down the alley and there were all these trees that decorated with a picture of one Swami like this, with a turban on his head, like this. And Prabhupada said, you know what he's saying? I said, no, I don't know, Prabhupada. Is he saying something? Yes. I said, listen, he's saying something. Prabhupada, I don't know what he's saying. So Prabhupada said, he's saying very clearly, I'm fool number one. I didn't say it, Prabhupada said it. So Prabhupada had great humor and was enormously powerful. I mean, if you see this building in Mayapur, this is not, a human being cannot do that. Nobody is capable of doing, one person being able to build such a huge building, distributing thousands of books, converting the lives of so many people to Krishna Bhakta. Nobody can do that. You have to be hugely empowered. And Prabhupada was hugely empowered by Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta transferred a huge amount of kripa to Prabhupada, no doubt about it. That's why Prabhupada could do that. He was divinely inspired to be able to do that work. He moved everybody. We were young devotees, the temple plan told me that I should marry a girl that just joined the day before. I didn't know her, she just joined. He said, when is the marriage? I said, tomorrow. Why? It's Sunday. It would be very nice for a Sunday feast. And this week we got married. Think about that. And so the father came, he was a Christian, dedicated Christian. He flew all the way from America. He was in a shock. A dedicated Christian's daughter get married to somebody, some pagan cult. And he was in a shock during the whole marriage. He was, like a machine, and made photos. And last day, he said, I want to make a photo. I want to go back. I'm getting to Prabhupada very soon. You will understand the depth of it. He said, I want to make a photo. And we didn't talk to each other. We were like, I was a brahmachari, take any brahmachari and put him together in a room. He doesn't know what to do with her. At least that was the situation. And so I was standing there, she was standing there, and said, stand together. I said, we don't do that. I said, why? We're not the body. We're a spirit soul. They said, come on, stand together. I said, we don't do that. We're not on the body platform. Come on, give her a kiss. I said, never. He said, what are you getting married for? Because that's what the whole thing is in material life. People get married for sensual enjoyment. So then this man, he was very angry and very upset, and he went to, when he came back to America, he saw a paper that Srila Prabhupada, leader of the Hare Krishna movement in town. And so he went to the temple. Brahmananda didn't let him in. He said, you can't go inside. Brahmananda was pretty big. My father-in-law, he's pretty big. He threw him into the wall. He was a powerful man. And Swami Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I have to talk to your daughter. My daughter got married. He said, well, come back. No, it has to be right now. I'm going crazy. So Prabhupada asked him, come in. And for 3 hours, Prabhupada preached to him. It's in the conversation book, 3 hours. And by the end of the day, the man told me, he said, I understand your Swami much better than you do. He said, now I understand. He's a very great man. And so for the rest of his life, he would always tell me, you don't understand Prabhupada. I understand. I was listening. Because Prabhupada could do that. He was such a powerful preacher. He was so pure that he could, touch everybody to become Krishna conscious. So I see people are leaving. I think we have to close. Is it? No? Huh?
9:30.
Okay. So I give you another example of Prabhupada's greatness. One time we had a lecture in Uppsala University, Stockholm University in Sweden. And it was a very left university, Naxalites, all Naxalites, communists, Maoists, everything on the left. As left, extreme left, extremists, almost terrorists. So Prabhupada, he came and he could smell people. He could immediately understand where these people were. Like so he could smell their breath, And he sat down, he sang, and then he said, so I have to tell you there are 4 classes of men. The first class men, second class men, third class, and people were in shock. Because for them everything is class in society. It's a foundation stone of communism, socialism, isn't it? And so very shocked. Prabhupada kept talking, first class men, these are the symptoms, second class, third class, and it's important. Societies invite, there had to be leaders in society, they must be guided by Brahmins, by first class men, etc., etc. And Vaishyas, they have to work and produce food and grains, etc., maintain the whole society. And then there's Sudras, the working class, and that strips them off. Working class is for them, these are sacred cows. Commonly, working class, they're the best. They're at the bottom of the whole society. And somebody stood up and said, of course, Swami, you think that you're first-class men sitting on a high throne, covered with flowers, and all your followers bowing down to you, as if you were a king. I became so angry. I could have liked to butcher him behind the stage. I was so angry. And Prabhupada said, no. Prabhupada said, you misunderstand me. He said, I'm not first class. He said, actually, there was a long break, very silent, everybody listened. Prabhupada said, I'm not first class. He said, I'm actually fifth class. And everybody was shocked. And I was also shocked when he said that. And then he said, and I was sitting there exactly where you sit, my head like this, trying to hear every word he says. I saw behind his spectacles, 2 big tears came down. And he said, because I'm the servant of everyone. And I understood. And he was speaking the truth. He was a servant of all human beings, even the animal kingdom. He served every single one. He was the number one human being on the planet at that time. And I heard him speaking to one professor, famous Zen Buddhist, most famous Zen Buddhist in Western world. We invited him. And Prabhupada talked to him and explained to him exactly what I said before. There's no concept of soul. He explained to him, asked, Professor, what is your philosophy? The professor spoke up to the point of how the mind is traveling from body to body. And Prabhupada said, what do you think of this philosophy? He asked Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, not very intelligent. The man was in shock. And Prabhupada explained to him. And after he heard Prabhupada, listened for 1 hour to Prabhupada, the man got up in front of all of us, and we're young people like you are, flat on the ground, paid a whole dandavat, wearing Prabhupada's foot. And later when I brought him to the railway station, he said, Prithu Prabhu, I met many swamis, many mahants, many gurus, many sannyasis, many so many things, Babas, in India. I met the Pope. I met everybody you can meet in the religious field. I never in my whole life met a man like your Srila Prabhupada. He said he is completely self-realized. He's on the other side of everything that we don't know. You see, so that was his judgment. He's a very big man. It took him an hour to understand Prabhupada's greatness. Most humble, most powerful, most intelligent, most tolerant. I mean, Prabhupada suffered like anything when he was in Radha Damodar temple. You don't know that. I was told by his doctor, this is named Narottam Gupta. Narottam Gupta was his doctor, and Prabhupada came. He was living in the Keshigat, in these caves. When you go past these holes, there's no window. There he was living first, because he had no money. Then he was living, this doctor, he treated him there 7 times in terms of malaria. In 1 year, he said, you're going to die. We're going to get some room for you. So he got him a room. And then later in Radha Damodar temple, he was lying on the ground with high fever on a straw mat. That type of straw mat. As thin as possible. He was lying, it was high fever in winter, you know how cold it is. And the godbrothers told me, Swamiji, you will die if you don't get a bed. And Prabhupada said, no, I won't get a bed. He said, why not? He said, I will use every paisa for book distribution. Think about that. Every paisa for book. This temple, this movement, that doesn't come from nothing. There's an enormous amount of tapasya there. And we don't know. Enormous amount of tapasya. It was very austere. Most austere. And he was faultless. Mr. Desai that later became his disciple, recently died. He said, I walked with Prabhupada so many times on the beach, I couldn't find a fault in it. Businessman is looking for fault. He likes women, so he will arrange a woman for him and then gets a good deal. Everything is done like this. You study the fault of a person because every human being has a fault. Myself also, you also. Human being has fault and glory. Both of these qualities. Every human being has some fault, some glory. Look into yourself. There's some fault there, there's some glory. Right? That's normal. We focus on somebody's fault because we are so busy contemplating our own glories. That's the thing, you see. So, but he couldn't find any fault in Prabhupada. He was faultless. He was faultless. Very tolerant, lying on the floor, In Amsterdam, there was a stage in Vondelpark, and one journalist, and we were all young devotees, I was 25 or so, a couple of months in the movement, standing on this stage and singing Hare Krishna to our fullest heart's desire. And one journalist on the stage with his lens came closer and closer to Prabhupada. Then he put the lens on his eye. And Prabhupada was singing, Jaya Radha Madhava. And I was just about to jump up, and Prabhupada said, Ciao! Fell on his back and ran away. And then my godbrother, Chakravarti, he got up and he followed him. I heard there was a huge commotion. He came back and said, what did you do? He said, I gave him mercy. So he punished him. So Prabhupada was like that. He was very humble, he was very tolerant, he was very clean in his habits, in his life, everything, all the good qualities. And we are very lucky that somehow or other we have been able to come to this movement because he created our good fortune. He created our good fortune. He created our good fortune. Now we'll close with one story that one time when we were translating Bhagavad Gita into German, there was one verse in Bhagavad Gita from Bhagavatam, the one who takes bath in all the, one who chants, takes bath in all the holy rivers of India. You know that verse, Aho, Bata, etc. And he has taken pilgrimage places. And so I asked him, Prabhupada, does it mean in my last life I was in India? Because it's an obvious conclusion. And he said, well, maybe. He said, maybe, and he smiled. He said, but actually, most important, I created your good fortune. And it was very wonderful to hear this from your own guru. I created you into the face. I created your good fortune, And now, if you think about it, the chanting of the Hare Krishna movement was secret for a long time. Yamunacharya, he spoke from the rooftops. The guru was very angry. There's a secret mantra. So to come to this secret mantra, you have to perform a lot of austerities, right? Visiting all the holy places in India, in winter, in summer, thousands of kilometers, bathing in cold water, warm water, hot water, etc. A lot of tapasya. Then Krishna will send somebody to you. And he said, more important than all this is take this mantra, the secret, for people highly qualified. But then Lord Chaitanya came and he broke open the storehouse of love of God and distributed to everybody. And Prabhupada is his messenger. Therefore he can say, I created you good fortune. And so anybody who ends up in the Hare Krishna movement is extremely fortunate. Somebody may be old, somebody may be young, somebody may be intelligent or less intelligent, it doesn't matter. Anybody who chants the holy name and comes together and lives in a temple, it's very special. And so I congratulate all of you that you have come. Because all of you left everything behind. You left your, where are your friends from college? Where are your friends from kindergarten? Where are your friends from high school? Anybody here? Nobody. Right? You left them all, you came alone. Every single one, isn't it? So there is a famous Christian saint that came to India, he came to Kerala 2,000 years ago, Thomas, St. Thomas, you've heard of him. And he wrote a book, these are the words of Jesus. And he said, there's one verse, blessed are those who came alone. You can understand, these are people who left everything behind. Blessed are those who came alone. Then he says, you came from the kingdom of God, and there you will return. Now you never hear this in Christian church, that we came from Vaikuntha, that we came from the spiritual world. You never hear that. But he knew, because that's the truth, that we came from the spiritual world, and you will go back there. That's what we are trying to do. Prabhupada gave us, as he said, he gave us the ticket. Yes, he gave us a ticket, but we have to work for the visa, Prabhupada told us. So I thank you very much. I thought to use this time to talk about Prabhupada, and particularly in connection to this temple, and our experience at that time. I remember we drove from here to Mayapur, and the conch building was in construction. It was this scaffolding, bamboo scaffolding. And when we came from Yoga Peak, we went around the bend, and there was this huge flag. It must have been the size of this wall. It was gigantic on top of the roof, you know, fluttering in the wind. There's a big lotus inside. It says ISKCON. I was so proud. I said, I'm so happy that I joined this society. I couldn't believe it. My heart was jumping in joy when I saw this huge banner, ISKCON, because I knew I'm in the right place. Somehow I ended up in the right place by Krishna's mercy and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premananda, Hare Krishna. Any question? Yeah? Are you satisfied? Happy now?